When my mom died, we started going through her things. She had a lot of things. She was a collector for years and years, and then eventually a hoarder. She had treasures galore. We had tons of fabric and yarn and projects and old mail and magazines and all kinds of things. Postcards galore. And in some of what we found were parts and pieces of what you see here. There was a collection of granny squares of different shapes and sizes. Well, not shapes, well, rectangles and squares, some small, some big. Some of it had been stitched together, some of it was just loose, one square here, one square there. Generally with this theme of purple. There wasn't a name on it. There was extra yarn, new skeins, and I didn't quite know who it was for or what the intent was, but I assumed that given the color, it was probably for my sister-in-law. I didn't know if she knew about it, if my mother had told her, if she was just sort of working on this purple blanket for my sister-in-law, whose favorite color is purple. At the time, I didn't know how to crochet, but I knew some of my mom's friends knew. And so I reached out to one in particular and said, hey, I've got these parts, I've got extra yarn. Would you maybe be willing to finish this project for my mom to gift to my sister-in-law? And she said yes. And then about a year ago, I learned to crochet and I started to gain confidence. I learned how to do the granny square. I learned how to do blocks like this. And I reached out to that friend and I said, I don't know if you finished that quilt or not, or that Afghan, but if you haven't, I would be willing to give it a go. So she sent up the parts and the pieces and the skeins, as well as a block that she had done. And I started working my way through. I made squares like this one and long bits like this one, some small, some big. And then that part was pretty fun. Then I started the hard work. The hard work is putting it all together. It's not a pattern. They are not measured to fit together. You just sort of kind of have to make it work. And I started doing that work and it went on and on and on. And then I had to make new bits and then stitch together some more. And as I reflected on this project, I thought this is kind of like our faith life. Sometimes we are working with scraps and bits. Sometimes somebody started us in a particular direction, maybe handed us a bit of material to use and a design and a direction, and so we build that piece. And then with somebody else, we build another piece. Maybe at one point talking about baptism, a different point talking about communion, maybe talking about what it means to follow Jesus, or about the miracles, or about the prophets, or Moses, or Abraham, right? Different elements of faith or different lines of theology or doctrine, things that get built up as we are early in the church, maybe as kids in Sunday school or vacation Bible school, maybe as youth and youth group or at camp, maybe as adults. Sometimes we inherit parts and pieces. Somebody just sort of hands us the information and we receive it like a finished square, and then somehow we have to figure out where it fits, or does it fit, and how it might interlace with our other parts. There were a couple of times where I had a stretch that had already been completed. There was one green stretch like this that was about this size, but I didn't need that green stretch anymore. But as I put together the quilt, I needed that green yarn. So I unraveled all that work that had been done, and I stitched it in a new size and shape so it would fit the need. Sometimes we do that with a belief or a theology. We like the substance, what's there, the material, the basis, but its shape doesn't quite work for us. So we sort of unravel the thing that we learned and redesign it in a way that fits with our other parts and pieces so that we might have a collective whole. Now the difference is, I'm just about done with this. I'm gonna finish stitching just a couple of squares together, and then I'm gonna put it in a box and put it in the mail and send it off to my sister-in-law as her gift from my mother's friend, and from me. But our faith life, we don't box it up and mail it out. We get to keep designing and building and collecting. Sometimes just being comforted under the weight of it during a hard time, allowing the protection of our faith, the warmth of it, the coziness of it to be a part of how we live, and sometimes needing to adjust or fix. Maybe a part becomes untied and unraveled, and it's no longer stitched together, and we have to get some new material or do something to repair what's been broken. Friends, our faith life is a creative process. For some of us, it's very structured and organized. For others of us, it is like a crazy Afghan. Either way, I hope that you lean into the process, that you are encouraged, and that you are comforted by the work that you do. Take care, friends.